Hello and welcome to the Quest for the Good Life with Dr. Mike Strouse. He is back from crisscrossing the country. He's got his trusted fedora, as you can see, and he's ready to take us on a quest once again. But today is a special day because we have a very, very special guest. I'm talking about Marcy Davis. Um, she comes to us from Iowa, and she is the CEO of Candeo. In Latin, Candeo means to shine. But in her hands, it became something far greater, a sanctuary for human potential, a place where light is not just seen, but shared. Decades ago, Marcy left behind the noise of hotel lobbies and restaurant floors to step into the quiet, sacred work of human connection. She began helping people with disabilities carve out a space of their own in the world. What started as 14 individuals and 17 staff has grown into a constellation of lives illuminated by compassion, courage, and community. To understand Marcy Davis is to understand what it means to walk beside someone, not to lead them, not to follow them, but to stand with them until they can see their own light. And maybe that's the secret of Candeo. It isn't an organization at all, it's a verb, a living action to shine. Today, we sit down with a leader whose story is less about titles and more about transformation, about how dignity becomes policy and how one woman's unshakable belief in others became the light by which so many now find their way home. Thank you, Marcy, for being with us. So, Marcy, how are things in Iowa? We've heard about the flooding. Is everything okay?
Yeah, well, it was more of a personal flood. Our sump pump stopped during a storm, but our northern neighbors had horrific flooding, and they're still
No.
recovering from a lot of loss, both their homes where they provide services as well as many of their employees. So it
Marcy,
has been.
I didn't know that in Iowa. Eva was talking about travels. I really have been on a quest. I went to from Kansas to Arkansas to Alaska to South Dakota to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and now back home. I'm telling you,
Goodness.
I have zero idea what time zone I'm in right now. But when I was in Alaska, Marcy, there was massive flooding.
Yeah.
And I was in Anchorage, and so Anchorage kind of became a sanctuary for people who have, and they were saying that, in some of the areas of Alaska, people literally will not be able to go back for, a long, long time. So I was really surprised by that. But I didn't know in Iowa that they had massive floods.
Yeah, and very, very dramatic because it wasn't just that water overflow, sewers backed up, so total loss of homes, total loss of animals, possessions. So some of our northern neighbors are really still struggling.
Wow.
Yeah.
What major cities would that be, Marcy? Or what?
That's like the Storm Lake area, a few others up up that area.
We have a lot
Yeah.
of provider customers in Iowa, and so I wish all of them, and I hope all the people who they serve are all safe. So, yeah,
I think that's one of the positive things. No life of individuals was lost. So
yeah,
that is a
it
positive.
is. It is amazing, Evo, how incredible, and how surprising floods were. I remember that one in Texas, and how you have like a 100-year flood or something like that, and how fast things can change. You just don't have any idea on how fast things happen.
Water is unstoppable. Water might be the
Yeah.
most devastating power of nature there is, and people don't realize how incredibly powerful and destructive it can be. And you remember, guys, in Texas, the loss of lives this
Yes.
year, it was absolutely devastating. A lot of people don't know, but in the Midwest, we all have basements because of the tornadoes. Not all, but almost it's advisable to have a
Yeah,
basement.
yeah.
Yeah. And basements flood and some pumps quit working, and that can destroy the foundation
Hmm.
of a house. It can lead to a lot of loss of property. And yeah, my sump pump has stopped working several times during heavy rain, and it is a complete disaster. It is,
Well,
it is
in all sincerity, I'm a smart home guy because of all iLink and everything that we do, but it's now such a simple addition to a sump pump to monitor that it's working. And it's on your mobile device, and it'll let you know if you're someplace else and it stops working,
really.
things like that. I mean, because there may be no flood, but it still doesn't mean that it's getting power and those sorts of things. So it's
Yeah.
important that for less than $100 that you put that device on there. It's in my mind, it should be something that insurances probably offer free to people because it's a lot of money
Well,
when you.
until then, until they start offering, let's share that app with the listeners.
Yeah.
Uh, I will put a link on the podcast page because I feel like that's very important. So yeah.
Yeah. All of it, I'm appreciative of all this, but it's doesn't usually start out this serious, Marcy. This show, so we gotta we
Okay.
gotta we gotta flip it a little bit because
Yeah.
listeners are just not expecting too much seriousness at the front of the show, at least on that. So, Evo, what is it that we always ask here?
Well, to explain the fedora, of course, Mike likes to wear the fedora because it is he emulates his favorite character from the movies, and that's Indiana Jones, who seems to always be on a quest for for a holy grail, for the ark, and so on and so on. And Mike is always on a quest, and he's an adventurer, and he's
It's in
always
the name
looking.
of our podcast, Quest for the Good Life,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the reason, really. So it makes sense to have the fedora on. And we like to ask our guests who would be their favorite character from a book, a movie, someone they identify with. And this is going to be our question to you, Marcy, today.
All
Who
right.
is your character?
So I really couldn't come up with a particular character that I related to. T- Mysteries, time shows are a passion. Many
Mm,
years ago, when our middle daughter started watching NCIS, she hooked our entire family on it. And Tuesday night became family night. Nobody was allowed to go out. Nobody, yeah, all homework had to be done early. And as a family, we watched NCIS. And this is long enough ago. It was on regular TV. So we had commercials. And on the commercials, we would kind of say, "Oh, I think it's this person. No, no, I think it's this person." And it became just a really nice bonding experience. And of course, whoever guessed it right was feeling on top of the world and whatnot. All three of our girls are grown, out of the home, raising their own families. But my husband and I continue this, but we watch a lot of British television. So Midsummer Murders, Vera, and the same thing happens. Now there's not commercials because we now stream, but we're frequently during quiet times of the shows say, "Oh, I think it's this person. I think it's this person," and kind of challenging each other to see who's going to figure it out. I love that I'm the operations person at Candeo, so I don't get to claim this skill, but in our work, it's the same thing. I might be solving a business problem, but my amazing operations team, they're solving a mystery with the people we support. What is causing this person to do this? What is this root? How can we help them find a way to deal with this thing that's troubling them? and do it in a way that's positive. And so the kind of the mystery thing just is a part of my life, and I love solving mysteries. I love solutions. I love seeing things work, kind of like the 18 thing. Love it when a plan comes together.
A-team. Now you're cooking right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, we're in the same age
The
range.
A-team, you got me hook, line, and sinker on the A-team. We're talking about Mr. T. And who was
Yes.
the leader of it? I liked him a lot too, but
The guy with the
they had
cigar.
uh, man.
I don't remember what they called him.
Was it a colonel or was it
I think Colonel might be right.
yeah, I think it was a colonel. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
I gotta look that up. I gotta see if they're because I was in Alaska and my old favorite show, Evo, used to be Northern Exposure. I don't know if you
Oh my
remember about
gosh,
that.
that was
Oh, I've watched
great.
it.
That
So
was
I
great.
decided to start, binging that while I was in Alaska, and now I'm into the seasons of it.
It's
But
aged
that
well, right? The show has aged well.
it did, it did.
Yeah.
I remembered it so fondly, and then you always go back 10, 20 years, and it's like, well, it's not exactly what I thought it was, but it's still fun to watch. Yeah, I love it. It's good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
good. A lot of
Northern
characters
Exposure.
in it and stuff. Well, listen, talking about solutions, Marcy. We're here today to talk about that and sort of your experience with it. The one of the reasons I travel over there's only two. One is technology and helping providers across the country implement technological solutions for remote support and assisted living and things like that. Our iLink platform. The other one is all the work we do on improving the capacity of our direct support workforce, which is disappearing in many ways. So,
Mhm.
and you are quite a success story with that, and we have a lot of success stories with it. But I
Mhm.
mean, I've really enjoyed the work and hearing about your path. But I want you to first describe, a little bit about your agency, how many homes you have, and sort of where you're located and what your services are. Just a little bit so we can have that context of what we worked with together.
Sure. So we are a home community-based provider. We work in Iowa. We have disability-based waivers, which is changing, but for right now, we currently serve individuals who are on the intellectual disability waiver, brain injury, and then the habilitation waiver, which is the mental health services. And then we also recently opened up a new service. The legislator demanded it about a couple of years ago to meet high mental health needs. It's called intensive residential services. In addition
Was
to
that
those
people who
four,
were previously or potentially at state hospitals and
oh, jail, hospital, community mental health centers, individuals that are very complex and have not reached enough cognitive and mental health stabilization to be successful in our more traditional home and community-based services.
yeah.
Yeah. In
That's
addition to
a
those, we
it's a
do have our
challenging
employment
it's a
services.
challenging population, but it's necessary if you're gonna close a state, facility,
Absolutely.
so,
It,
yeah,
it's a necessary step down for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
So
well,
those are
that's
the primary services we do. How many sites? We have about 16 of our traditional home and community-based service sites, and we have one intensive residential service home, and we just got board approval for number two. So we are house hunting.
very good. Are houses affordable in your area?
Oh, I don't know. I think that depends on who's making the purchase. We're a company, so I think we're going to be okay. I think individuals struggle a little bit more.
Yeah, I can see that, I mean, but, I'm working Alaska, there's a lot of different I mean, we did a remember it's a great podcast, the one we did, um, with the folks from Alaska, and boy, if you wanna hear interesting challenges,
Like,
and
yeah.
with the workforce, that was an
Yeah.
interesting podcast, but what was really is sort of strange about, Alaska is the workforce is very challenging because they have all this seasonal stuff that just kind of wipes out the labor force. But at the same time, it's a very complicated labor system that they don't really give any breaks for. So they make it pretty hard, to deliver, services in some ways, but they do a great. They're incredibly resourceful as a group. It's just amazing. So, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
are those Iowans. We do a lot of work with Iowa, and they
Yeah. Do you remember, Mike? They were talking about Marcy. They were talking about sleds delivering services, sleds, helicopters, airplanes.
Mhm.
The sheer distance, the area that has to be covered to get from point A to point B is unimaginable. I didn't know this, Mike. You're an adventurer, so you probably knew, but I had no idea. If you take the state of Alaska and you stretch it over the contiguous United States, it
touches
will
both
stretch.
coasts.
It will stretch from the east to the west coast.
Isn't that
That's how
Wow.
big it
amazing to
is.
think about? Yeah, and that's why, like, it's a bit harrowing because when I went to visit programs, we had literally a pilot that would take us in a very small plane, and it was a white knuckle experience. And my pilot was about a 28-year-old young woman, um, and I'm telling you, she was good, but it was a new experience for me. So
Yeah,
it was, and there's no roads that connect these places sometimes.
yeah.
So
Uh,
it really, like when they say that, it was just incredible. So if you guys haven't watched that podcast, it's pretty cool to watch on that one.
Mike, Mike, I saw you in the Temple of Doom on a very small airplane,
Was
and you were not afraid. You were afraid of snakes. So if there's no snakes in Alaska, you'll be all right.
Yeah, it isn't a big snake area, but I am going to be going to Kodiak, which is like the bear
The bear
capital
can. Yeah,
of this part of the world. And then, but the
Mm.
biggest things down there that are kind of bad is moose. They're much more
Oh.
aggressive.
dangerous actually than bear. And I was in Anchorage at the ARC, provider there, nice, great provider, and out in the parking lot. And they said, "Well, we really need to go in. There's several moose out here now." And like I saw them right there. So it's like, we all have our issues, but Alaska is truly raw.
Yeah,
It's really that. So yeah.
but
Well, anyway, we're talking about Iowa, and we're trying to at least. And Marcy, we um, started working together, but why don't you tell us how? Because I don't actually remember how we initially got connected.
It was actually maybe 2 years before we formally connected. I attended an Iowa Association of Community Providers conference, and I sat in a GoodLife presentation, and I gave myself writer's cramp in the attempt to take notes because it was like, I have to have this. This is going to be something we can use and expand our workforce. This is a really positive thing, and I need to connect. So the only reason for the delay is, as you know, Iowa is constantly, and maybe other states as well, constantly changing their system. So we have minimal capacity, and you have to stay focused on the top priority. So it may have been about 18 months later, but I saved the information, I reached out, and I scheduled a presentation for my executive leadership team. And
How did that
it was,
go? I mean, because as a leader, you can see these things, but at the end of the day, the executives have to do it. So how
yes.
did it go when they got that? Did they see your excitement, but they didn't quite share everything, or what?
All right. So my team may watch this. So let me tread carefully. I knew this was right. I could see all of the benefits and the positive things. My operations team very justifiably uh, really internalized how difficult it could be and how challenging it could be and what it was going to mean for them. So I definitely faced some resistance. So we had another little bit of gap while I worked with my team and worked through some of those fears and concerns. And we may have actually even had to have a second presentation because we probably submitted a lot of questions. I don't want to push my team. We need to work together.
And we do that. I mean, because it sometimes takes a couple of rounds on that. In
Yes.
fact, even if you remember, I did a podcast on the objections to changing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is like there are, change is hard. But what's that old adage, Marcy? If you do the same thing over and over again, you expect something different. It's a definition of insanity. And I would tell you, in the area of labor for 40 years, I swear
Yes.
to you, I feel like I'm walking the wilderness for 40 years, but I've been doing this for 40 years. And
Yeah.
I can tell you, um, it's been the same. I mean, people have done the same process over
Yes.
and over and over and over, and they've never made any gains doing it. I mean, at all. And,
Yeah.
and so, but and so we really tried to study, and I'd love to hear from you that, like, the objections. What is the number one concern is people would leave. I mean, that's the biggest concern, right?
Correct. Well, we had the added challenge that not many, I don't know exactly how many years ago, but we went from a system where our managers kind of willy-nilly made a schedule every month and put it out, and I won't even go into all the challenges of that. So we worked to develop permanent schedules and move our team into permanent schedules, and for 3 years, we didn't get into them, and that's because we did it on our own. And this is one of the things I have to stress, and I'm probably going to stress over and over and over and over again. The reason we failed in a smooth transition into permanent schedules is we were winging it and we didn't have a consultant with experience and tools to help us. And that was the big difference. So I knew the team had the angst from that negative experience. I also knew deep in my gut that with working with a consultant, you are going to set us up for success. And it took a little bit of work to help them understand how critical that difference was, is that we're not going it alone. We're not winging it. We're not doing it just from our, brains. We're working with a team who has done it over and over and over and developed amazing tools, processes, and supports. And that is a huge difference. So yes, change is scary, and a change like this, the fear of losing employees when we have a ridiculous workforce shortage, you can't ignore those. And I probably ask 50 to 60 times, how many people quit? How many people quit? And your team not only answered the question with statistics, they also connected me with other organizations, both in Iowa and outside of Iowa, so I could have conversations with those CEOs and I could hear directly from them. So my confidence in being able to manage and not having to be concerned about a mass exodus really was addressed in multiple
Though,
ways.
Marcy, that's exactly the motivation behind this podcast, is that I can talk to people about, no, we can get through this, and you're not going to have these issues, but it's not the same as talking to somebody else that's actually gone through it and had those fears before they go through it. It's just, we've been doing this since 2001, so we don't have any new fears of it.
Right.
But you had to go through it, and you had to
Yeah.
lead a team, and that's always the case. I found, there's a comfort with what you do, even if it's not perfectly working. It's at least a
Yes.
known thing.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's really important also to say that your team was always patient. They never got frustrated that I asked the question so many times. They never got frustrated that I asked to talk to another person. Your team was just very patient with me. They met me where I was, and they met my team where we were. And we were probably slower than others.
No,
And
no, you won't.
yeah, I think so. I feel we had to take a break at one point. I don't remember what the cause was. We had some kind of state thing coming, and your team was great. We put everything on pause. We put a new date in, and you walked with us. You really walked with us every step of the way where we were.
Well, Adrian is really a national treasure,
Yeah.
and and she is done this so many times. I was going to have her join the podcast today, and just didn't get it done quick enough. But Adrian gets a lot of satisfaction about helping people, and then Steve, he's a different cat, but if you need a technological thing solved with your payroll, he's the guy. He can.
Yes. We worked with him a lot.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
automating that stuff, because if you
Mhm.
don't automate it right, then it's a real pain. It can be a real pain.
Yeah.
So, well, tell us then, how many homes did you do this with, Marcy?
I believe we did 16 out of our 18, and the 2 we didn't transition was because they weren't 24-hour.
More fraction.
They were considered daily and reimbursed daily, but they had, long periods of no services, either because the individuals were working or independent, so it just didn't make sense.
Awesome.
But that ended up being a benefit because, for individuals who were not able to make the transition, we had something to offer them.
Yeah, we have a whole another thing that's really rolled out this year after your thing is what I call fractional services. And that's what I'm working in Alaska with. They have so many people that get 4 hours or 10 hours or 20 hours a week, but they're not at any certain time. And we use our technology and sort of a neighborhood approach for that. And it's really good. But yours is more continuous support in your
Well,
case.
we have both, so you can see I'm making a note to look up and talk to you about fractional services next.
Well, they're very different. They're very different, and
Yeah,
they are handled differently, but they can still
yeah.
be done, well. So, all right. So, tell me about the implementation a little bit. What worked well and what didn't work well? How did that go?
So that is a massive question, and that's months and months and months of work, coordination, and communication. So I'll try and nutshell it. I think the first thing that I want to cover is the mass number of resources that we were provided. So we had many different documents that we could review, ask questions on, and we were able to put together a plan with tried, tested, and proven communication. So there was a communication plan. We had legal resources to explain premium pay. We had uh, we were given a wage computation tool to help our employees see what they earn now and what they were going to earn in the new system with the premium pay. I think there were 79 tools. So it may seem overwhelming. We didn't use all 79. But the beauty is we were able to look at our organization and select the tools and the services and supports that we felt we needed to make this successful. I'm going to say right now, I know we have more in the podcast. I'm going to tell you
No,
right
we've
now
had
it's
other
successful.
podcasts, and so we're not going to go through the details of the
Yeah.
schedules, but in general, they were 3-day schedules, what we called our front back half schedule. Um, so 3 days that included us. The front half was Sunday and 2 days out of a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The back half was Saturday and 2 days out of a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So front half and back half, day and night. And that's generally the schedule that you guys use, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that was one of the biggest challenges. Even when we went to permanent schedules, I did whatever I could to kind of put my foot down and say, every full-time employee has to cover a weekend. I don't care if it's every other, I don't care if it's one day, I don't, but it never happened because our managers were constantly making deals and we had very weak part-time weekend employees who didn't know our
Right.
clients well. So quality of services on the weekends were lower. And then we had that Monday through Friday 8-hour shift where the clients may be working or going to day hab. So we have our strongest employees working where the lower need is. And it was a bad system. So that was definitely one of the biggest areas that we were concerned about.
That's 90% of the nation, though, Marcy. And
Yes.
a bit statistics that you might be interested in is about 40% of the workforce nationally has been there more than 3 years. The rest is completely turbulent. And the reason that 40% has been there more than 3 years is because they migrate to that Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
which then they stick with, but then the weekend's completely turbulent and part-time and vacant and it becomes a big challenge for people to do. But then the big fear that you have is, oh gosh, what are those people going to do when we pivot to a 3-day work week and those sort of things? So I'm anxious to hear like all the fears and
Yeah.
what's the reality on.
Well, let me preface it with saying, like I was said, I started my career in hotels and restaurants. So I was working 6-day work weeks, 12 to 16-hour shifts every single weekend, every single holiday. So in my heart, I knew my employees, there was a struggle with that because they also had to work weekends and holidays. And it is difficult, and you do miss out on um, some family events and certain holidays and things. So I was very sensitive to that. So the premium pay on the Saturday, Sunday felt very good to me. We're recognizing those are not necessarily the best shifts. We're recognizing they're more difficult for your family, and we are respecting you by offering you a premium pay, a legally authorized premium pay every single Saturday and Sunday you cover. And it was only one, not two. That was a creative piece that even I never thought of. Was like, just make it one. And so that was definitely the biggest challenge. That was definitely
So everybody
the
worked 3 days, but they had to work either a Saturday or a Sunday.
the full-time 36. We do have that one position that fills in that Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah,
Thursday.
that's the float
Yeah,
position, right, but outside of
correct.
that, the majority is 1 Saturday and 2 days out of the backside of the week,
Yes,
or 1 Sunday and 2 days out of the front side of the week. They have 4 days off. I mean, there's and more
yes.
money, but so there's all this trade-offs with all of that.
It is, and the challenge was how really helping them understand that because even with those wage tools, and we showed them, you're going to go to 3 days a week, you're going to work 36 hours, not 40 hours, and you're going to earn more money. And we literally plugged it into the calculator and showed it to them. And I think that yes, they could see that. The bigger challenge was the more human one. I have kids in daycare. I don't have anyone to pick them up. Who's going to feed them? Because our shifts are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Who's daycare closes at either 5 or 6. Who's going to pick them up? Who's going to feed them dinner? Who's going to help them with homework? That was a very big challenge. And I knew that was going to be the biggest challenge for our employees because so many of them have families. For us, we had the ability to offer them either those two sites that had a little bit more traditional hours. We call it intermittent or hourly. I think you called it the fractional services. We offered that. We had a wait list. So if you absolutely need that Monday through Friday, let's get you to interview with this team and look to see if we can do that for you. So we had the luxury of being able to offer an alternative for those who truly had no support system to manage that after school and daycare to 7 p.m. And yeah, I was terrified. We're Everybody's gonna walk away from us. The reality was the exact thing I heard
How many
from
employees,
other
by the way? How
providers.
many employees for the
Oh, okay. So we have intermittent
DSP, correct?
employment at I think about 125 to 135 were our daily.
Okay, and how many vacancies did you have before this all started then?
At that time, I'm going to say between 35 and 40 FTEs, which probably translates to 60 to 70 positions, full-time, part-time, casual.
So you literally had a third of your workforce missing.
Ugh, we had a horrible mess.
You know, what's so interesting, Marcy, is across the country, I would tell you, and I'm not exactly sure why, but Iowa is one of the harder states for employment. And who would have thought? You know, I work in all kinds of places. You know, I was in Chicago, you know, or in Minnesota, or you know, and you would think that some of those areas would have, and they do have problems. But have to say, Iowa has some challenges on that. You know, one of the reasons I think is because there's a lot of remote work that they actually do, even in other states. I mean,
Mm,
if you have a remote opportunity in Chicago, you don't need to hire people from Chicago. You know, you can hire people from
oh,
Kansas and Iowa.
yeah,
So
yeah,
anyway, go back to it. You had uh 100.5 people and maybe 40 or 50 openings. That's pretty challenging. So the fear of
yes.
losing more would be a real fear.
It was a very real fear. And what I heard from others was my employees who have already been talking about retired early. The 12-hour shifts were not something that they felt they could do physically. And, maybe a few left. But for the most part, the turnover was not caused by the 12-hour shift. And that's what we experienced. I literally did the research and I collected the data. We had 2 employees retire early. We had 1 employee who had submitted his resignation and rescinded it because he wanted the 12-hour shifts and the premium pay. We had 3 employees come back to us who left because they wanted the 12-hour shifts. We probably had 2 or 3 that moved into our intermittent services. No one moved into employment. In the very moment, we did not lose any employees. Probably over the course of time where they were looking, we may have lost 3 or 4, maybe 5. So we were very supportive while they figured out how they were going to manage their family and their children and those evening obligations. We had, some temporary agreements, and then we moved into it. So a lot of them just they flipped. They had a date and they flipped. There were a few sites where we had a slower transition, and that was to help those families figure it out. We have a lot of our employees are from outside the United States. Some of them do not have a support network here. They're the only family member in the United States. Others have huge networks. And so by just being firm with having a small contingency of flexibility, we were able to keep the majority of our employees, and they were able they found ways to figure it out. And yeah, now they go work 3 days a week. They're off 4 days, or they can take a second job, or they can do, whatever.
Pick up more shifts. Wow.
They can pick up more shifts, and we have some that do, and we actually have 48-hour packages for those people who absolutely have to work that many hours. So we have been able to create the 36-hour shift, the 48-hour shift, and then people are welcome to pick up openings. And the workforce manager, that is really key also.
Tell us about that.
That was new to us. It's kind of like a scheduler, but it's more. And we spent an incredible amount of time talking about it and kind of like challenging the precipice behind it. And it reports to human resources, which was extremely confusing to us. And we made the agreement. We are going to implement the GoodLife plan exactly as we're being taught to do it. We can talk about it in a year if we don't think it's working. And that's how we did it. We had our workforce manager report to human resources.
Not
And
operations, separate.
correct. And that was a little bit of a challenge because our HR team really didn't have that deep understanding of schedules or operations. So a lot of partnership, a lot of conversations, a lot of support with our GoodLife consultants to work through those challenges and those gaps, those pieces of knowledge and experience that we just didn't have.
Well, we went through that because we've been doing this since 2001, I think,
Yeah.
at GoodLife, and we didn't start off that way either. But the problem was there was a lot of pressure when it was under the operations side to change this or
Yep.
accommodate that,
Deals.
make deals. And by having it separate, we always had a rule that if somebody proposed it, it had to come up to the top, and the top was me, actually. And so, we had always that separation. And at the end of the day, it removed the pressure from the managers to make these accommodations. They just say, we're going to have to suggest that to HR and we'll see where it goes, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so that position's been very successful. That position supervises a team of individuals, and I have to apologize. I can't remember flex and superimposed. I get those mixed up a little
Superimposed
bit.
is what we called them, but
So flex is the one that works the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and superimposed are those individuals that fill. Okay. So having that's a new position for us. And having that superimposed employee was also very critical to being able to fill those openings that were caused by somebody leaving the organization or somebody calling out sick. We saw a decrease in call outs We definitely saw a decrease in callouts, and that was massive because that was the major complaint of our managers was manager on duty getting all those callouts. It created so much
And then call
stress.
the same people to get them to work. I mean, people who we get inundated by calls. I will tell you, and just for the listeners, the superimposed workforce is a 3-day workforce on top of your workforce that's there to fill openings because we don't know where they're going to be, and so we
Right,
have a percentage of additional positions that's always there that covers that, and there really isn't a cost to it because it's the number of people that are superimposed equal roughly what we anticipate to be the openings in the agency. So it's kind of negates, and it's not an on-call position. They're hired to work, right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also say that we had a very unique opportunity that while we were in the midst of this process and still working on developing our communication plan and all of our systems, that's the time we were also opening our intensive residential service home. And the intensive residential service home, those employees are paid at a higher rate. So that does help with the hiring process. But because we were opening it during the time we were partnered with you, your team met with our operations and we opened the doors in our intensive residential services homes with 12-hour shifts, with all that weekend coverage, with on call. And as any operations person will tell you, is starting fresh is always easier than change. We have not had issues with opening those intensive residential services homes with a 12-hour schedule, the premium pay, etc. That was very smooth. We faced all of the normal challenges of change with our traditional services. So I think that proves it's a good model. It's a
Well,
very good model.
I can't wait because I actually want to ask you a couple of questions on the after now. So you had 30, a third of your workforce missing before. You had a fair number of part-time, if I remember, I think, or did
Oh, we had a slew of part-time and casual employees, and they were very expensive
oh
because
yeah.
they didn't always work, and we had to carry them in our payroll system, our accounting system, our HR system. Yeah,
Okay. And you had overtime or not?
massive,
Massive overtime.
massive,
So 4.
and our managers were covering massive shifts. I was working 1 day a week for an entire year in a site. That's
Serious.
how bad it was.
Quantity.
Yes.
And wow. Wow.
Yes.
So workforce, your managers were working, you had openings, you had part-time, you had all that and overtime. One last thing before we get to the after, what kind of pipeline did you have before? How many people were applying for your positions that you had open?
I don't know exact numbers. I will tell you applications have absolutely increased since we switched to the 12-hour. So we definitely there are people that are very interested in that 12-hour, that 3-day work week. So our pipeline opened up when we made that transition.
And that's something that people need to realize because, I always talk about schedule migration, which is in your old system, you had some preferred schedules and non-preferred schedules. And if a really good schedule opened up, you didn't fill that from the outside. Somebody from the inside filled that. So you're
Absolutely.
constantly going to the public with your crappiest schedules to fill, which is why oftentimes people have a dripping pipeline. So in the new system, pretty much all the schedules are equal for the most part.
Yeah.
And so the people who are applying for the same schedules that people already have, and they're more appealing. But at the end of the day, what was talk to me about your openings now, your pipeline. Just tell me a little bit about the after.
So the after is we are absolutely inundated with applications, which just shocks me because we would post something and a weekend, oh, I had 2 applications. Now we'll have up to 75 applications. Now they're not all good because remember the entire world is facing this crazy workforce shortage. I have windmill technicians applying. So not all of them are great, but the very fact that we're receiving so many opens up so many more opportunities for us to be able to, let me close this real quick. Did I lose you?
No,
Oh, no.
it's like,
Uh,
are
Yeah,
you?
sorry. I was trying to, a call came in and it shouldn't have. I apologize.
No, that's
You're
fine. I
good.
didn't hear a thing. So,
You're good. Absolutely.
Um, so yes, we have a large number of applicants, up to 75, and that's for our DSP. We'll have over 100 for our intensive support specialist, which is the higher paid position. Yeah, that's unheard of. We have not seen that since 2014, 2013.
well, I can tell
So
you because we do research on this. It's usually 5 to 7x what you had before, and it sounds like you were at least that.
yes,
And people
yes,
don't understand that. It's like you, your faucet's running with this, and I'm going to throw this out there, Evo. I was in the hospital 3 times for planned procedures. I
Yeah.
had kidney stones the size of quarters, Marcy, and they had
Mm.
to take them out through my
oh,
back. And I had to go through
oh,
a couple of operations to do it. But what was funny, Evo, is I was in there. I always ask the nurses, what schedule they work, because the hospital is where we got this idea
Yeah.
yes.
30 years ago. Almost every hospital is on a 3-day work week, right?
Yeah.
This is really fun. I was in there and I was asking about it, and they said, well, this is interesting. And I started talking to the nurses and saying, I'm going to let and I told them, we were kind of one of the people that researched this schedule. And anyway, I got a call back while I was in the hospital in my room from the HR director, and she said, I've read your research.
Oh my God.
We actually read your research on the 3-day work week, and it's like almost every hospital in the country uses a 3-day work week. That's all they ever do.
Hmm.
Um, because a lot of times you move from one hospital to the next. There are people in RVs that are nurses that go from hospitals to hospital, and they all work a 3-day work week. But I actually got to talk to the HR director about what they did, and they were kind of excited to talk about it.
Hey.
But anyway, you're saying the number of applications went up. What about your openings?
So they went down dramatically. I think the lowest we got was 10 FTEs. That's unheard of. I mean, a company that doesn't have a workforce shortage is going to have 10. That's just normal. And that's 10 FTEs, that
Yeah.
various positions throughout the organization. So definitely, we also we have a dedicated recruiter. We have enough applicants, we can have a dedicated recruiter. When you only have 10 applicants, your operations team can manage those. When you have 75 applicants, you need a recruiter. So we have been able to expand and sophisticate our recruiting process to be able to get through those 75 plus, find the ones that are truly qualified, and move them quickly into the system. And
On the
so we
hiring
pretty
basis,
much
I mean, I truly know you have 75, but you get ghosted a little bit, some, all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, did you feel like you were hiring people of good qualities with the new schedules?
Um, that's kind of an on and off, and it's not because of the model, it's because of our environment. So applicants now are primarily international immigrants. This is the kind of work they do it back home. It's familiar to them. They're experienced. So of course we face some of those language barriers, culture barriers. So the quality, the heart, the passion is there. Our challenge is connecting in language and culture. So yes, we have some new work to do because of our environment, but yes, the quality of our employees are coming to us, our applicants are coming to us with a heart to do the work and the passion, and they have the right philosophy, and they are truly fed by the work that we're doing.
So, Marcy, I would have to say, if you had 10 openings with your workforce size from where it was, plus you have superimposed on top of that, you net out at almost no openings. Is that true?
It is much easier. Our managers, I don't believe our managers are covering shifts. I haven't worked since 2023. My director of quality hasn't worked a direct shift since 2023. And we did this transition July 2024. So definitely we are able to cover with the people who want those extra hours and are looking for those extra hours, and individuals who just step up because they're willing to do that. But we're not covering shifts with those people who really shouldn't be covering shifts.
So what's it like
That
for
in
your
and of itself,
managers then? I mean, your direct managers?
they can focus on the challenges of what John's doing today. We've
Mhm.
got a crisis over here. I'm not feeling a shift. I'm taking care of my team, my client, my staff. So the ability to focus on the services has dramatically increased for our managers. The focus on schedules has dramatically decreased.
Well, the other side of that too is if you have a workforce manager, there's only one person calling people, so they're not getting calls from everybody. That probably is more manageable as well, and less work for the managers themselves then.
Yeah, they do still partner quite a bit, and we made it very clear it was a
Yeah, that too.
partnership, that we weren't just shifting everything to one person, and we just knew that that was going to be needed because you never know with the fluctuation of the workforce. I would say the partnership, the teamwork, and the camaraderie is very helpful in our workforce manager is going to jump all over it, but if our manager gets a call from her, they're gonna pick it up because they know she's already done everything else, and they may have an idea. And, our managers know the employee. I mean, our workforce manager knows our employees, but it's quite a few. Our managers know their team better, and that kinda switching and swapping to get the right employee in the right place in that moment is important. So the partnership is really critical, and we worked very hard to make sure that we built relationships and had good, solid partnership between them. So, and we only have one workforce manager because we're in a very small area. We don't have as many locations as other organizations. So we know she's covering a lot. And
So
the
for
partnership, the camaraderie is good.
so, for listeners out there, the premium pay is a longer story than we wanna get into, but we pay premium pay is time and a half for a working Saturday or Sunday. And it's put
Correct.
into the budget, so it really isn't costing you anymore. It's just put into the math of everything, but let me ask you this, so you work 3 days, one of which is a Saturday or a Sunday. What was weekends like after compared to before then?
Oh, we do not face the openings and the callouts on weekends like we did at all. They happen. They happen every day. But that has definitely decreased. The quality of support is absolutely better on the weekends because we have our full-time employees who know our clients, who are full-time with us and have the most background and experience. So our Saturday, Sunday services are much more consistent and a higher quality than they were when we had our part-time casual. And it's no disrespect to the part-time casual. They just didn't have the opportunity to learn and build relationships like our full-time
Yeah,
employees.
because 'cause you're
So,
literally working through them through the week, so when they work on the weekend, it's not like you have to supervise them the same on the weekend. You're concentrating your training and supervising through the week, and it sort of transfers to the weekend. But what's
yes.
your you had a lot of part-time before, what's your part-time now?
Oh, I should have looked that up. Definitely reduced, but I can't give you a percentage.
Yeah,
It's
nationally,
not
we've
the
been
most
averaging
desirable.
about 92 to 94% part-time.
Heavens no, heavens no. We're down in the 30%, maybe 20%. And we were probably, if I had to guess, around 50 or 60. We have definitely reduced those PRN and casual employees.
Yeah,
We do
good.
maintain the part-time because that's a really good option for us. But the full-time 36 and the full-time 48 are the two primary positions that we have and fill.
Awesome. Wow. Well, what about overtime?
Um, Overtime is definitely down. So we were a little bit unique because we did this implementation while we were still struggling with COVID losses.
Okay.
So how we paid for the premium pay was the reduction in the PTO, which we followed the GoodLife model. That was probably our biggest challenge and remains our biggest challenge. And that was because we had to have it be absolutely cost neutral, or we would not have been able to do it because we just hadn't come out of the COVID losses yet.
Yeah.
Now that we're out of that, we have the capacity to invest, and the best place to invest is our DSPs. And personally, I believe uh, taking care of DSPs who are covering those weekends is also very important. So, that was the biggest challenge for us, and they're still not happy with the PTO, and we're working on it. Now that we're out of COVID, we're gonna have some conversations about what we can or can't do. But that was a challenge. That's a challenge I would encourage organizations to kind of look at, is that PTO and the impact of it.
So you have a lot of good impact on all this. I mean, your vacancies
Oh my gosh,
are
absolutely.
gone. Your managers aren't working as in the home shifts. Like it's maybe a little bit, not much. They're not. They're partnering with the vacancy coordinator, but still leaning on the vacancy coordinator to organize things. Your overtime is down. You have a pipeline that's flowing. I mean, all of those things are good, Marcy. And if what would be your advice to another agency that was in your similar situation about how to what to do? I mean, like because I struggle because I'll go and I'll meet with an agency and I look at and hear like where what about the agency, get to know them and see the problems. And I could just tell them, "Oh my gosh, if you would just," I of course, I don't wanna overdo it, but if you would just do it, your life would be changed, you know? I
Yeah.
just know it because I had that experience, but you just see this reluctance on it. What would your
Yeah.
real message for those people?
Oh, my message would be absolutely, dive into it, do it. We went from requiring 7.5 employees per 24-hour location to 4.2. I mean, spreading your workforce. I mean, any of us can do that math. We
Wow.
went to recognizing that the weekend work was less desirable, and we recognized it with money, and our employees need to earn. So that, I mean, those are morale builders, but they're also good business decisions. I would also say, do not go it alone. Talk to GoodLife because the plan is phenomenal. The resources are phenomenal. Um, GoodLife, you all gave me a presentation. Like I did 14 presentations to walk our team through this, and I worked through the presentation that I was provided by GoodLife. You also connected me with several other organizations in Iowa, and I looked at theirs. And so I was really able to piece together a presentation that I felt made sense for our employees. Those 14 presentations, I was terrified. I mean, who wants to be the sole person sitting in front of
Yeah, if it
all of
doesn't
your
go well,
DSPs?
that it is the thing about your role and my role. I mean, if you're because lots of times, you know, lots of times you got to go a different direction, and it is terrifying, and it might not work, and but you know,
Yeah.
it really it's really consistently been working. Now, you know, there's a couple of
Yes.
times where it hasn't with us nationally, and I know why. You know, why it didn't. There are different reasons for different programs, but I'd say we're well over 90% success rate nationally.
Yes.
But part of it is in many cases it's just doing it on a subset of homes so they can see, you know, that. And then once you do it in those homes and you see the pipeline of applicants going up, but not for the other homes, for these homes. And you know, all of a
Yeah.
sudden the managers start raising their hand and say, "Hey, when can I do this?" kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we
It's
believed in
tough.
it so much, we didn't pilot. We went 100%. And
You were brave people,
with
and we
the
really loved it. Yeah, we really
well,
do. I mean,
with
we were so proud. I was talking to Adrian before the show, and she said, "I was just so proud of that program." And, you know, she has all those memories about the people that she's gone
yeah,
through with, and it's just, it's just a cool process for her.
yeah. Well, I think it's really critical. Your communication plan was absolutely spectacular. That was one of the biggest challenges I face is, what is the order? How do I do this? What do I share at what point in time? And the communication plan, which was part of the process, was extraordinarily helpful. The tools to be able to put together a presentation and answer questions, spectacular. I mean, I cannot even begin to tell you that this went 1000% more smoothly than I was expecting. I was expecting my life and my world to blow up. It did not. 14 presentations, well, 13 because one got blown out by a tornado or something, literally blown out.
Yeah, literally.
13 presentations, excellent questions, only one angry, nasty employee. It was a live session. Out of 100 and what did I say? 35, 55, 65. Only one angry, aggressive employee. Everybody else, beautiful questions, logical questions, valid questions. And we were prepared because you gave us the information.
Amazing.
I was having the experience of trying to go into our permanent schedules and for 3 years failing and doing this in a matter of months. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let me
Thank you.
tell you the thank you on this is that this podcast is probably going to generate a lot of people that's probably going to want to call you and ask you a question or two. And I hope that we kind of moderate that a little bit. But
Yeah.
the whole idea about the podcast is the kind of questions that they would ask or the kind of questions we just did ask.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're hoping that they can see that there's another side to this. I don't know how long it takes, but I've seen us go through in 6 months, and I've seen us go through in a year. Most times it's closer to the 6 months, but mainly it's because we do 5 to 6 homes as a subset and those sorts of things. And not everybody does all of them like you did, but we have done a lot that's that way.
Yeah.
When it goes, and probably some of the reasons is once you start and they see that it's actually working, then everybody else kind of just joins in on the
Yeah.
whole thing, and they see who's applying and that kind of stuff. So it makes a difference. Once an agency has a reputation of sort of crappy schedules, nobody applies. And then once they
Yeah.
have a reputation where they're attractive, then it pivots, and they got to get through
Yes.
that.
All the employees talk to each other. They work for multiple providers. We recognize that. And so they're talking about, hey, I only work 3 days a week. I get premium pay on Saturday or Sunday if I work it. I can pick up a Saturday or Sunday, so I can get premium pay 2 days if there's an opening. And that really does impact their earnings.
So the last thing I'm going to say is that we've been talking to a couple things where you're an anchor member.
Yes, we are.
We're probably going to pull a group of our successes together and do a Movie Mountains Award, where we collectively do it. It's a really cool award, and I feel like these agencies should get that recognition. And so we may or may not get it, but that's something that's going to be happening. The other thing that we're going to do, probably 26, we're going to do an invited, relatively small conference where we're going to bring back some of our successful programs, probably about 10 programs to an invited conference, a 2-day conference where we talk about advanced labor work, other kinds of things that are potential things out there. The idea behind this, a long time ago, there was a conference I went to that I loved. It was called Sharing Our Best. It was a conference in Nebraska. And it was everybody there used the teaching family model, which is the model that we used at the time. And we would go there, and it was it was sharing about that particular model or about the same kind of labor issues and kind of things that people did. And every year they would at the end of it, they'd have a strategy session where we would try to agree on priorities of what we would try to work on the next year. And everybody come back, share what they accomplished with that. And we use that as a way of sort of enhancing our toolbox for the future. Be cool. So I've decided in my last few years, I'm gonna rekindle that conference, but more as I don't want to say kind of invited conference, but really a working conference. One where
Yeah.
you come in, you learn some stuff from different people, and then you agree on what we're going to try to do better. I just feel like a lot of the conferences you go to, it's so eclectic, it's so all over the
Yeah.
place, and you learn stuff, but it's not like targeted. And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't think labor problems are going away. I think they're going to get
They're
worse and
not.
worse and worse. I really do.
Well, the last report I saw, it indicated that 2030 was the peak of the workforce crisis, but I suspect that possibly has been expanded because just different changes in our nation. So it's not going away. It's
Well,
it's going to be
yeah, and
increased.
and what they're not anticipating and what the other research is showing is You got the senior tsunami for the baby boomers that's hitting. That they're going to be hitting the next 2 or 3 years. This technological sort of revolution also is not taking people out of care, but it is taking caregivers out of care because there's so many opportunities for people. So, there's just a lot, and you're right. The migrant workforce, we call them first generation Americans now.
I'm a
That
first generation American.
you are, yeah.
Yep, my mom immigrated from Latvia.
Okay. Well, the reality is it's probably the highest growing segment of our
Yes.
workforce. And that causes
Yes.
issues of, language issues and some things like that we're trying to address with our technology and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I know that we've gone through a whole lot today. And Marcy, thank you so much for sharing it. And and even though you didn't say it, I think, Evo, she's probably one of the superheroes out there. We're gonna have to come
Oh,
up with
goodness.
some
You're too
movie
kind.
character, uh, on just another one that we found.
Well,
Absolutely.
I
A
appreciate
very
GoodLife.
good leader that literally does a lot of brave things, and I appreciate that. It's hard to get through it. I'm glad you said the importance of getting, coaching and help, because it really is so important to do. You just, else you just kind of migrate back into where you were on that. And
Yeah.
there were people that hear the presentation stuff and they think that they can do it, and they it's not, there's just too many issues,
No.
too many things
Yeah.
that come up. So it's not much
I
to
think I
get.
was lucky that we had the bad experience before. And so I knew that we needed you and your expertise and your guidance and your support and your counseling. And, your support, your tools are the reason we were successful.
Well, Marcia, that's great. But I will tell you, it's right now I've got a pretty magic team, and they don't let me get too involved, because if I do, I get in trouble on some stuff. But I do enjoy. I love the research part of it. I love learning, like, little things, because I honestly think that improving your direct support workforce is a lifelong
Mm,
commitment. It's not a intervention and you're done. And that's why I want to do the conference, Marcy, is that I want people to sort of constantly be looking at what more can we
yes.
do? Because if you don't, you'll end up hitting a wall at some time.
Yeah.
There's always something more we can do. Right now, we're working on non-traditional benefits, um, things like that. That's kind of fun, and fractional care, which you just heard about, was the big deal. And ultimately, technology is got to be pulled more and more
Yeah.
into those sorts of things. So, listen, Eva, you have any, like, wise comments, anything about championship wrestling or anything like that you want to throw in here?
I always do, and the one thing that I wanted to mention has nothing to do with the topic, but Marcy mentioned her mother's homeland, and I have such fond memories of my one visit to Riga when I was a teenager. And I would recommend to our listeners, if they have a chance to visit Latvia, go ahead and do it, because it's a fantastic country with fantastic people, as illustrated by our wonderful guest. And I'm very thankful for this episode, and not because of the testimony for what we do and what Mike does, but because we do this for our listeners. And now they have a better idea that there is a pathway out of the darkness of our workforce shortages,
Yeah.
and they are real. And this episode was truly illuminating and casting a light on new, effective, successful approaches to hiring and retention of direct support
Hmm.
professionals. So, no doubt, we've learned so much today, all the way from beautiful Iowa. But we have to wrap it up. This was The Quest for a Good Life with Dr. Mike Strauss, the only man whose kidney stones are about to revolutionize hospital employment practices.
maybe I think I was under the influence of anesthesia too, so there may be a twist to the procedures now. So anyway,
It was an
Marcy,
honor.
we appreciate everything you do. You're fantastic and a wonderful leader, and Iowa is super lucky to have you. So
Yeah,
thank you.
fantastic guest today, Marcy Davis, the CEO and Chief Detective of CSI Iowa. where,
Thank you both.
where CSI, of course, stands for Candeo Services Innovator. Thank you, Marcy. Thank you, Dr. Strouse, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
listeners, for being with us on yet another quest. As always, we will return with a new episode in exactly 2 weeks.
Thank you.